97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Powered by InsideTheBirds.com, Football at 4. Adam Caplan's with us today from InsideTheBirds.com. Mike and Broads talking Eagles and NFL on this Football at 4 Thursday. Adam Caplan's with us here. Adam, what's going on, pal?
Boys, good to talk to you today.
Yeah.
Happy Thursday for you. And I'm
is
glad
it a different day for you? Is it a different?
Well, you know what? I'm not shaking hands. I was listening to your last segment, so one of the things that, not that anything's really positive about what we're dealing with, is I was never someone who liked shaking hands. I was more of a sort of like a wave or hello. I'm a hypochondriac, so I'm not missing shaking hands, folks. And when we're back to normal, whether it's 6 months or a year, if it ever gets back to normal, I will not be shaking hands. For those of you who come towards me, I'm not snubbing you. I just want to be healthy. Thank you very much.
All right, Adam Caplan, let's get into it. A couple of things here. As we know, a lot of teams, the facilities are now open. Coaches can go back, but a lot of teams, coaches have not made that decision. Now, there was some thought of some mini camps potentially happen. They've issued protocols for the return to facilities, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen for the mini camps are out. So what are some of the challenges of these new restrictions when training camp opens?
Yeah, Mike, so just to clear something up, there was never going to be any minicamp. What's happened, the only positive is that players who are rehabbing injuries are allowed to go in and work out at a team's facility. They're the only players that could come back. What happened is, I'm going to say about a month ago, there was hope that maybe by the end of June there would be one minicamp with players, but all it was hope. It was nothing factual. And then 2 weeks ago, I was talking to some coaches, and they were like, look, there might be a chance here that we may be able to come back a little bit earlier in July, at least the players could, and maybe we get 1 to 2 weeks of additional time with our players on the field, but that, unfortunately, with that comes the reduction of the preseason. That's what you saw out there with that report this week, so that's being negotiated between the NFL, PA, and PA. Now, let's move toward training camps. What happens now? So Here's first of all, the biggest problem that you have is when you want to have a team meeting, you can't have it any longer. You're restricted to how many people you could have in an enclosed area. So what you're going to have to do, it's really crazy. So one coach was telling me his early understanding is that they'll cap it at a certain amount, and the rest of the players and coaches, or the players who can't get into that meeting inside a building, are going to have to do it on their phone or go somewhere else in the building and do it over Zoom. That's kind of what you're having to do now. You have to deliver your message differently. And team meetings, remember, you've got to be 6 feet apart. So conducting positional meetings is going to be different. This is going to be, Mike, the new norm with coaches and players going forward.
That's crazy. The fact that who's policing this? Like the NFL has extended the virtual offseason programs through June 26th, but no further. But like if they say, hey, you can have team meetings, but you got to see 6 feet apart. I mean, who's in there really paying attention to this?
Well, each team is going to have sort of like an officer who will make sure everything's being done correctly. And I forgot, there's a certain term for it. And that's the way the protocol is going to be, and then and the testing, obviously. And then we'll find out. I'm going to say over the next, 4 to 6 weeks, we're going to find out about preseason. Right now, the Hall of Fame game is on, and that's great. But we need to really know a little bit more about the preseason, how many games we're going to have, and whether we're going to have it. And then, will fans be in it? That's kind of the next on the agenda.
Right. Now, most teams' training camps are scheduled to open late next month. There has been some talk of extending the training camps because of the mini camps, so opening training camps earlier and taking 2 of the preseason games out, correct?
Yeah, it would be 1 or 2 weeks. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So the coaches I spoke with 2 weeks ago had mentioned to me that the talk around the league was, and especially with their general managers, that they would come around, if this passes, they would come they would have a ramp-up period immediately, starting around the 15th, but it would be limited to what they can do. But it would be more some walkthroughs and getting used to being on the field again. It would be 1 to 2 weeks. But if you do that, obviously you're going to lose a week or two of preseason. And the problem here is for the league is if you lose preseason games, where does the money go? That you have to give the money back to the. You have to give the money back if the season ticket holders want it. They're going to want their money back. If not, they can get a credit, but it's going to be up to them. So they're going to lose money. So how do you negotiate that money loss? That's the big challenge for the league and the NFLPA.
Now, we heard Carson Wentz was working out down in Houston. We've seen some guys doing this. There's no coaches or nothing can be involved with those things, right? Correct.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to one of Wentz's agents. Carson did this last year. He's doing it with a handful of players in Texas. Jalen Reagor's there. This is good. I mean, this is what people wanted to know. There was kind of like, you see other quarterbacks doing it. I talked to the Bills. Josh Allen did it. I think that's important for a young quarterback. And look, with all of the new players here, and especially receiver, this is a good thing that Carson's doing this. I've not heard about Alshon Jeffrey, but Jeffrey cannot work out anyway. He's not clear to do that, so that would eliminate that for the season.
How much do you think this can actually help Jalen Reagor?
You know what, Hunter? I think Carson getting with Reagor, just in terms of seeing the way he runs routes. Where does he like the ball? Where could he go up and get it? You want to make certain throws to see could he go get the football. Now, his vertical is really good. Obviously, he's a tremendous athlete. But any on-field time, as Doug Peterson says, you can get grass, you can get on the field. That's tremendous, and that's really right now, guys. That anything you can get, it's certainly not going to make up for real practice. But any timing you can get down is really, really important, and it certainly does not hurt at all.
So, Adam, let's get into the wide receivers a little bit because Reagor, obviously, we talked about the plan for him. But as we've kind of chronicled a little bit, Deshaun Jackson, they're really counting on him. But after him, what's the depth chart look like? What's the roles behind Jackson? It seems like that's a muddled mess of question marks.
It is. In fact, when I sent Mosher my notes for Sunday's show, for our Monday show, I said, hey, we need to talk about this because the Eagles have a major issue with depth at receiver. Way more when I examined it and talked to people than I imagined. You're right. Look, Mike, if Deshaun gets hurt, and by the way, he brought his trainer in, I'm told, this week to Tampa. His trainer is one of the best trainers in the world. He's had him for several years. This is the best shape Deshaun's been in his life. He's just in tremendous football shape. But if he gets hurt again and Alshon's not ready for the early portion of the season, it's Marquise Goodwin's the next guy up. I mean, that's it. Obviously, Reagor will start opposite Deshaun. At least that's their plan as of now. Arcega-Whiteside, I'm told he's totally healthy. He's over his foot injury. It's healed months ago, but he didn't contribute last year. Marquise Goodwin is new. He has not worked with Carson. So you're right, Mike. They don't have many options now. Greg Ward, I've been asked about this. So I'll address it. He would not play on the outside on any circumstance. He's a slot receiver. He's a short area, sure-handed, good route runner, but cannot play on the outside. He's not fast enough. They found a role for him, and it worked out of necessity. But, to sum this up, guys, they have a real issue this season. If Reagor or D-Jax gets hurt, it's Marquise Goodwin, and he's had an injury history. He's had some personal challenges, unfortunately, with his family. And he's there because he's a veteran and he could run, but he's not exactly anyone you could count on.
Is there a wide receiver you think can shock the fans and the coaching staff this year?
John Hightower, yeah. Now, first of all, let me just make this clear. He needs to make the team first.
Yeah.
But if he does, he's really gifted. He's a little bit on the wiry side. He's a little bit thin, but I'm told that one area where they may line him up, and this is what Nelson Aguilar did. When Nelson Aguilar was a good football player 2 and 3 years ago, he was what you would call a vertical slot. Hightower, if he does dress each week, you may see him line up inside. When Reagor and Jackson are out there, because Hightower could fly, and he's not short. He's over 6'1", but he's a guy that needs to get stronger physically, and that was part of why he dropped to the 5th round.
Well, and keep in mind, Adam, a lot of people had projected guys like Hightower and Watkins too, that if it wasn't such a deep draft class, may have been 3rd, 4th round draft wide receiver picks.
Yeah, although, Mike, I would say with Watkins there were some off the field concerns with him.
True.
With Hightower, it was more physical. He just, I'll say this much about guys who are not well built. Darius Slayton, who was one of my favorite rookie receivers last season, also built like Hightower, but you saw what he destroyed the Eagles in that second game with Eli Manning. I could still see him running by them right in front of me. It was just remarkable. So you could never discount a young rookie, but it's so much harder for a rookie to come in and contribute right away because this West Coast offense is not easy to learn when these receivers come from spread offenses in college.
What about this wide receiver that went undrafted from Morgan State? I know you were really high on him, Bailey. Does he have any shot, or do you think because of all this, it's almost like he really doesn't?
Yeah, Hunter, Manasseh Bailey is there for one reason. He can run. He's from Morgan State. He's a project. He's more of a upside fifth receiver. It's super unlikely he'll make the team. But really, when you clear this all out, let's just assume Jeffrey won't be ready for week one. We don't know when he'll be ready. It's going to be Jackson, Reagor, Arcega-Whiteside, Goodwin, and Greg Ward. There's your five. Do they keep six? Well, if they keep six, it could be anybody. It could be Watkins. It could be Robert Davis, who was there last year. Deontay Burnett, who had to play. It could be Shelton Gibson, who, by the way, could flat out fly, but has had trouble staying with the team. So right now, I would say five receivers with the upside of six.
Now, that's interesting. So you're in the camp that Ward, and I like Ward. I'm not trying to get him off the team, but that he has definitively will make this team because I'm imagining that you get one of these guys with some speed in the slot that some of these coaches are going to be kind of compelled to be like, this guy's got a little bit more, explosiveness in this spot than Greg gives me. That's been the problem with Greg the last couple of years. You're
right. You got it right. In fact, I think if the Eagles were willing to be honest about it, they made a bad mistake. They overrated speed rather than productivity. Greg Ward absolutely, positively should be on the team last season. They kept Mac Hollins. Now they thought Mac was over his injury history, of the multiple sports hernia surgeries, and we know how good of a special teams player he was. But the problem is, Mac's production on special teams did not wind up being what they thought it would be. And I'll tell you, I was wrong. I thought that I thought Mac would wind up being a good fourth receiver, and obviously he was so bad that he didn't get the football and they cut him. But Greg Ward, they made a mistake. They overrated speed. It got so bad, this is when Carson Wentz struggled. He couldn't find anyone he could trust. And Greg Ward got the trust of Carson in the final quarter of the season and clearly has shown why he needs to be on this football team.
Do you think that Jalen Reagor will have a better year than Justin Jefferson?
Well, it's funny. I did a video hit for DraftKings today. They asked me the same question about Jerry Jeudy. I do think this because the Vikings, so they don't throw the ball very much. They have no depth at receiver. So Jefferson Hunter is going to start, and he ought to have 60 plus. He might even have 70. Reagor, I think, will have somewhere in the 60s. You just have to be careful of having super high expectations for rookie receivers. Sometimes we kind of overrate that, and I know that by necessity he's got to play, and they don't have anywhere to turn. Other than Marquise Goodwin, there's really nowhere else to go here. But the good thing is they have a role for him in mind. They have a plan for him. And what I'm told so far, by the way, is he's done really well in their sessions in terms of online teaching, obviously with the receivers coach, Aaron Moorhead. His learning and during the install, I'm told it's been really good. It's exactly what they thought it would be when they worked with him before the draft. So this is good. But again, until you get on the field, you really can't tell.
After Deshaun, who would be their number two guy?
Well, it's Deshaun, it's Reagor. Like if you just look at pass targets, obviously Ertz will lead them in pass targets and receptions. Right. After that, it's going to be. I would probably say Jalen Reagor will be number 2 in catches.
They better hope, right?
They better. Well, they need him, Mike. They need him to be, and plus he's such a matchup challenge for defenses because he's going to play in multiple positions. He's really the thing. If you watch his, but when you, if you get to go to training camp or when you watch him, you're going to see how developed physically he is. And by the way, I'm told he dropped that weight that he gained at the combine. He'd work, I'm told, with another trainer, and that trainer told him to put on weight, and that was a mistake. He's down in the mid 190s, which is his playing weight. He's just under 5'11", but getting back to your question, it'll be Ertz is 1, Reagor should be 2. Then it's probably going to be Deshaun or Dallas Goedert. I'm telling you, Mike, we've not talked about him probably the entire offseason. He is going to be heavily involved in their offense. We probably should be talking about him more. They love him And, unfortunately, Goddard, I'm told, suffered a calf injury the second day of training camp, and he was never right till midseason. Remember, he had the setback in warm-ups in week 2 against Atlanta, but he's going to be a major factor this season.
And that's interesting. How does that affect, guys like Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and what they or how much field time they end up getting? And because if you're having Goddard out there, that probably means a wideout's off the field.
Right. Well, it means you run more 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, and 1 back. And that to me is, I think they're still going to run they were number 1 again in 12 personnel. You're going to see that again. And then you're going to have, again, it does minimize the impact of not having great depth at receiver. Like, the Eagles have a lot of names, but very, very few of them are proven. So I think it'll be okay. I really do. They have a plan, and obviously with Miles Sanders on the field, who's super explosive. One team source said to me last weekend, he goes, he's LaShawn McCoy, but more explosive without the shake and bake like LaShawn had. So that's kind of the way the Eagles see him.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Let's look at a couple NFL news. Logan Ryan, interesting name, probably would be a starter for most teams in this league if he gets signed. I mean, the Eagles, would they be interested in a guy like Logan Ryan if he's still out there come training camp? But why is he available, and what's the latest on him?
Yeah, he's by far the best cornerback. So I decided for a website to write about him because people had asked me, and I've been talking to teams that like him. Here's the thing, he's 29 years old, really good guy, a very good football player, just does not run well enough. And to have him he's not an outside corner anymore. The way the Titans used him was great. They used him as an inside corner and outside corner. They used him at safety. They used him as an inside linebacker. He was a blitzer. He had the best statistical season, but he gave up a lot of plays, Mike. He's just not fast enough. No, although the Eagles clearly could use another outside corner or veteran, they have not shown any interest in him. And right now, it seems like, barring a surprise, they're going to go to camp with this group of corners. Trevor Williams is a kid that was with the Chargers who started some games. He's number 41. You're going to see him in training camp. He's got a real shot to make the team as 4th or 5th corner.
That's it. It's like the running back spot where they have been kind of I know we've talked about a lot. They would bring Freeman in if the deal was right, but the fact that they haven't moved on a veteran running back, it's almost like they're intrigued to see what they got with these young guys. It feels the same way maybe at corner that, hey, you know what, we're going to let these guys battle it out.
Yeah, 2 things. So one thing I failed to add is Logan Ryan teams told me that he clearly wants $10 million a season, and he's not getting anywhere close to that. So that eliminates the Eagles just from the start to even think about it. Forget it. They're not. They would never consider anything like that. Now at running back, yeah, you're right. If Freeman and Hyde, as I reported 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Eagles were in touch with the agent about a month ago, and once they found out, and they saw what they were aware what Hyde was going to get with Seattle, so that eliminated both of them. Now if Freeman comes in August and says, all right, I cannot get what I want, I'd be willing to take something that they think is fair money, $2 million or so. I'm just coming up with a hypothetical number. That changes everything. $4 million is a non-starter. You do not pay a backup running back $4 million. It's just absurd. Carlos Hyde's deal is actually in cash about $3 million. There's upside for $4 million. That's a lot. That's still now the reason why the Seahawks did that is because Chris Carson, their starter, who's terrific, has a major injury history. They know they need to have a second back to rotate in because they're not at the point with Carson where they trust that he'll play all 16 games. Now with Sanders, the Eagles want an insurance policy in case he gets hurt. Boston Scott right now would be the backup running back, as I understand it.
Going back to corner real quick, if Avonte Maddox doesn't work on the outside, what do they do? I mean, can they rely on Sidney Jones? Is it possible that maybe if they had to, Jalen Mills goes to the corner, and then you have McLeod and Parks at the safety position?
Yeah, they really, the way it was explained to me is it's either Maddox or Jones. They're going to battle it out in training camp. They're not handing Maddox a job. Just to make that clear, they don't have this is where it gets to be an issue because Rasul Douglas will go to training camp. They tried to move him. Nobody wanted him. He'll go to training camp. He'll have another shot to make the team. They don't have anywhere else to turn. It's really got to be Jones or Maddox. Trevor Williams could be a decent 4th corner, but right now they don't have anyone else. They really could use another veteran on the outside, but to my knowledge, they have not seriously looked into it. To finish this off, they're in trouble. If neither of these kids could establish themselves in mid to late August, it's not going to be good. Then they're really going to have to do something.
All right, Adam Caplan will get out on this. Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com, at Caplan NFL. Any shot we see Colin Kaepernick in a training camp this year?
Been asked that a lot. No, Mike, here's why. If it were up to some general managers, Mike, he'd be in camp, or he would at least get workouts. Owners, Kaepernick won his case against the NFL. The league clearly tried to blackball him. It was obvious. And nothing's really changed. There's been I'm told as of yesterday his agent is not getting any calls. But I will also tell you, Kaepernick works out 5 days a week, and he's in great shape, and he still wants to play. Look, what's going to happen? This happens every year when these quarterbacks go down in training camp. And by the way, it's going to be a little bit with the challenges of if somebody gets sick, Mike. What if a team loses a quarterback to illness to COVID in terms of having to be self-quarantined? Plus, with injuries, we may have this, Mike. It's something that people have not talked about. Colin Kaepernick is by far the best backup quarterback available. It's not even debatable.
Should be interesting. I mean, it almost feels, in 2016, the league came out last Friday. They put out that video. But in 2016, there was concern that they would lose fans and lose people with all the kneeling. Now it feels like it's switched that you would almost have people applaud a team for bringing him back. I know there's people listening and probably saying, are you kidding me? But things have changed in 4 years, believe it or not.
Well, especially lately, if we're being honest here, obviously the attitudes have changed toward kneeling. You're right. It was summer of 2016. I'll never forget it. It was a Saturday night, and the next morning I wake up and I'm like, wow, what happened here? But people now have a better awareness, and it needs to be about football and not to be about him kneeling or not. It's got to be about, do you want to win or not? If you want to win, bring the guy in. As I've maintained, and I'll continue to say this, at least sit down with him, see what he's about. I talked to the Seahawks about him when they had him in for a visit. They actually really enjoyed their visit with him, and they felt great about it. They just felt like at that point Colin still wanted to start, and obviously Russell Wilson is not going to be challenged for a starting job. Now, clearly he has no chance to start. He's a backup quarterback. Why not bring him in and see what he's about?
Adam Caplan, Football at 4, powered by InsideTheBirds.com. Of course, tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco is in. Adam will be back next Thursday as we will start to look at some NFL off seasons, the divisions, and I know a lot of people interested in what's going on around the NFC East. We'll do that all. Football at 4. Adam, take care, pal.
Guys, thank you.
All right, Adam Caplan, like all guests on Football at 4, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.